Okay. Perek Beis, Hilchos Deios, the second chapter, the laws of Deios. Number 4. Le'olam yarba odam b'shtika. The Ram doesn't say yarba odam b'shtika. A person should always try to increase his level of silence, not to speak. Only we'll see in a moment to speak when you have to speak. Silence is a great virtue. The expression silence is golden. It's a Gemara in Megillah. Silence is golden. The Talmud tells us that speech is worth 1 coin, 1 gold coin. Silence is worth 2. That's the value of silence. In Pirkei Avos, Reb Shimon, the son of Judah the prince, says, all my life I've grown up among the wise. And the characteristic which I've learned from all of them was shtika, silence, meaning to listen. Not to talk, but to listen. So Rambam says, La'olam yarba odom b'shtika. Always, you should increase your degree of silence. Lo yidaber, elo b'dover han-chochma. You should only speak something if you have what to say, a word of wisdom. If you want to communicate a word of wisdom or concept, which is wisdom, then you speak. Or something which is necessary just for your existence. You go purchase something you need. You want something which is necessary for your existence, then you speak. But outside of a word of wisdom or something which is necessary just for your existence to maintain yourself, you should not utilize the power of speech. We'll see in a moment why. We had studied the laws of Shmiras Haloshen, how careful a person has to be when he speaks. The Chofetz Chaim writes that if a person is not careful and doesn't study the laws of what's permitted to be said and not permitted to be said, over a period of time, not an extensive period of time, one could be in violation of 14 positive commandments and 17 negative commandments. Now, if you're really careful, you study the laws, you review them, and you think before you speak, which means you usually don't speak Lashon Hara. You don't speak anything which is negative about another person unless you're permitted. If you do slip, we're not perfect, you slipped. You said something you shouldn't have said. Because since your mouth is trained only to communicate information which is appropriate, so when you communicate something inappropriate, you sense it immediately. Because your mouth is trained only to express things which are appropriate. But that comes with conditioning. I'll give you an example. A person, God forbid, doesn't use any profanities. Never. And one time he's angry and he uses a profanity. Never does he use profanities. When he uses that profanity, he knows he used that profanity because he never ever uses profanities. And afterwards, when he thinks about it, he realizes maybe he only said it because he was very upset and he was in a fit of anger. Otherwise, he wouldn't have said it. And now he reflects and he regrets he even said it. He shouldn't have said it. Identically, if a person's mouth is not conditioned to be controlled, everything comes out of that mouth. Maybe words of wisdom, but a lot of foolishness and a lot of things which you shouldn't say. But if you are trained always to assume the persona of silence, so words only come out if they meet certain criteria, certain conditions, wisdom or something which is a necessity. It's necessary for you to maintain yourself, then nothing but that will come out of your mouth. Although sometimes it does, but that's only because we're not perfect. But the Rambam uses the term la'olam, always. Always you should increase your ability to remain silent. They pride themselves, gift the gab. And they can't stop talking. You sit with them. Oh, by the way, did you hear this? Did you hear that? Did you hear what's going on? What's the value of all that? Has no value. Because the moment your mouth is let loose, many things that are going to come out are going to be foolishness, words, things that you shouldn't say, like gossip or other things. Therefore, the Rambam says a person should always increase the ability to remain silent. You should only speak about something which is of wisdom, or something which is necessary just to maintain yourself as a human being. They say Rav, who was the great Torah sage, who was one of the closest students of Judah the Prince, who's the redactor of the oral law of the Mishnah, throughout his life, he never expended a word that wasn't a word that was necessary to say. No word was said which had no value. Every word he said was a word of necessity. What he didn't say is actually the conversation which most people do say. Most people, the words they say have no value. Rav was to the contrary. He's never expended a word, enunciated anything out of his mouth, didn't have the ultimate value, which was a dvar chochmah. Words of wisdom was something was a necessity. The Talmud tells us in one location, quotes a verse, and it speaks of a person who's a Torah scholar. It says, Oleu lo yibol. Now, when you have a fruit has a leaf when it grows. What's the value of a leaf? A leaf, the value of a leaf is, I never took horticulture, okay? But the function of a leaf is that as the fruit grows initially, before it's at a certain stage, the leaf protects the fruit from many things. When the fruit is fully ripened or ready to be picked, usually the leaf separates and eventually the leaf falls off. It separates and it detaches from the fruit. Because the function of a leaf, and it withers. Till then it's what? It's moist because it's important for it to stay close to the fruit. But as the fruit no longer needs it, it withers and it falls off. So the verse tells us in prophets regarding a Talmud Chacham, a Torah sage, Oleu lo yibol. The leaf of a Torah sage never withers. What does that mean? So the Talmud tells us, the Gemara tells us that Divrei chulin shel Talmud Chacham, the ordinary words of a Torah sage, scholar, tzrichin Talmud. You should study. A person who's a Torah sage, when he speaks about the weather, he speaks about current events, he'll speak about a loaf of bread. Anything he says, you should analyze the words because there's definitely wisdom contained in those words. Because as he says it, what he's pointing out, that's the mean. Although a leaf, its value is only the fruit, other than that, it withers and falls off. What's considered secondary to a Talmud Chacham, even when he speaks about ordinary things, not the word of wisdom, if you analyze what he said, wisdom is contained even within the ordinary. I'll give you an example. Person goes to the bakery. Person who's a special person. And is the counter girl who waits on the customers. This person walks in. Firstly, he doesn't push himself to the head of the line, that I could tell you. He'll wait his turn. And even if somebody offers him to go to the head of the line, he usually turns it down. Because he doesn't want anybody to feel that he's taking advantage of anybody. Finally, he's waited on. He'll say, good morning. He'll acknowledge the person with a smile. And then he would ask for what he wants and the way he asks and what he picks and what he chooses and the way he thanks the counter girl and this and that. Have a good day. Everything is what is natural, but it's all calculated. It's already a conditioning because nothing foolish comes out of his mouth. Everything that comes out, it emanates from the source, the core, which is all wisdom. That's what it's about. Therefore, even the leaf, his leaf never withers. Even the leaf, which ultimately withers, has no value. So we speak about ordinary things, but his ordinary is not so ordinary. And you have to be sensitive to be able to see exactly what that's all about. The Talmud tells us, based on the verse in Prophets, that your behavior on Shabbos should be different than your behavior during the weekday. What does that mean? During the week, we rush, we hurry, we take large strides. Because we're rushing to do whatever we have to do. On Shabbos, it says your gait on Shabbos should be different than your gait during the week. Your gait during the week is large strides, hurry, rush. Shabbos is a special day. You walk at a more leisurely pace. You don't take large strides. You take smaller steps. During the week, you rush, you run. Shabbos, you walk slowly, leisurely, not rushing. Your Shabbos attire should be different than your weekday attire. To acknowledge that the day is a special day. Your whole behavior pattern on Shabbos should be different than during the weekday. The subject matter we discuss on Shabbos should not be the same subject matter that we talk about during the weekday. During the weekday, you speak about purchases, about the mundane. Shabbos being a holy day, we don't speak about something which has no relevance to Shabbos. By the way, what did it cost? Did you buy it? What are you doing next week? That's mundane talk. Shabbos being a special day, you speak differently. That's what you do. However, the Talmud tells us, what about in the morning when you go to shul? Normally, you should hurry to shul. The person rushes to catch a flight. You rush to catch a train. When you go pray in the morning to go to shul, you should rush because you're going to do something special. You're going to pray. You're going to sing God's praises. So the Gemara says that although on Shabbos one doesn't take large strides, one doesn't hurry or rush, but to go to shul in the morning, Shabbos morning, even though it's Shabbos, you rush. Because where are you rushing to? During the week, where you're rushing to the mundane. But when you go to shul in the morning, where are you rushing? You're not rushing to the mundane. You're rushing to acknowledge God, to engage with God. If that's the case, it's not contradictory to behave on Shabbos when you're going to shul as you rush during the weekday. It's all the same. But that's all part of part of one's conditioning. The Ramchal writes that one's outer actions reveal one's inner feelings. You see people, they get excited about certain things in the positive sense. Excited. You know, a little child, you tell me you take it to an amusement park. The child's all smiles, jumping around, jumping up and down. They're going to an amusement park. A person says, you know, we're going to the theater. I got these tickets. The wife is all excited. The husband's excited. So the outer behavior, body language speaks about what the feelings are. Somebody offers me tickets to the World Series, closing game, box tickets, or whatever you want to call the tickets. I say, I'm not able to take it. Thank you. No, thank you. How do you turn down such tickets? You know, I have some better to do. It's not my first interest. Another person, how did you turn it down? And the guy's having conniptions. How do you turn it down? You should have taken it, offered it to me. What did you give it to somebody else? No, I could have used it. No? Answers, I didn't think it was that important. I'm not here to curry favors with you, to pass on the tickets to you. That's what it's about. So every person's outer behavior always an indication of what exactly is going on in his emotion. A person prays with fervor. What does that say? It tells you that he's really on fire because he has feeling and he's praying with feeling. So the feeling manifests itself in the body language. You know, it's interesting. You know, the Israelis, the security in the airports, they're the best at reading people's stereotyping people. They can read body language. a person is a smuggler. A person's up to no good. They're able to detect from the way he behaves exactly what he's up to, what's going on in his mind. That's how well they read people. A person remains silent. What do you say? Probably the person probably has nothing to say. The answer is he has plenty to say. But unless it's worth saying, you don't say it. And sometimes you could say something, but you don't say it because there's nobody to say it to. I used to travel my first year in New York. Every week I'd commute from New York to Baltimore on the Amtrak. I'd catch the Amtrak train 11 o'clock in the morning back to Baltimore. And every week I had another story to tell over. So I'm sitting on the Amtrak every week. And usually when I traveled, I always had a small sefer in my lap, usually a small Rambam. And I'm sitting next to somebody, and the person says to me, is that a Hebrew book? I said, yeah, because they see the characters are Hebrew or another language. And they say, are you a rabbi? I said, yes, I'm a rabbi. So one week, this person, he must be about 6'6". And he says to me, Rabbi, I want to tell you something. I'm not an anti-Semite. But I want to know, why are there anti-Semites in the world? This is the question he asked me. If he has to tell me he's not an anti-Semite, but he wants to why, I'm not sure what's going on in this guy's head. Okay? Why are they anti-Semites? And he tells me he works in Washington, one of the departments. He's the head of a department. I said, okay. So I said to him, I said, the way I understand it this way. The Jews, nobody's gone, if you know the history of the Jews, going back thousands of years, nobody's experienced what the Jews have experienced. And despite all these upheavals and all these Holocausts and all the pogroms and all the displacements, we're still here. Many civilizations tried to destroy us. Every one of those civilizations are in the dustbins of history. They don't exist any longer. And we still exist. Not only do we exist, we're thriving. I said the Holocaust was how many years ago? After what the Jews went through the Holocaust, we lost 6 million people. How do you recover so quickly? But somehow the Jews bounced back. As much as they wanted to annihilate us and bring about the final solution, we're still here. And we repopulate. So I said, I'll explain you what it's about. There's a verse in Prophets says that the Jewish people like a boulder. A boulder. What does it mean? It's like a boulder. So the Midrash explains that in the medieval times, they had people they were called he-men. What's a he-man? He-men were these very muscular, strong people, and they'd actually be able to pick up a boulder. And there was a contest, and the contest was going for hundreds of years, and nobody was able to win this purse of gold. What was the contest? That you had to lift this boulder above your shoulders, and eventually over your head, and then throw the boulder away. And endless people tried. These he-men, nobody was able to. Now, when you lift a boulder of that size and that weight, if you get it above a certain height, if you lose your balance, you know what happens to the person? That person gets crushed by the boulder because he's holding it and it's above him and he can't push it away. He gets crushed by the boulder. And endless people tried throughout the years, and there were no winners for that prize. Nobody could win that purse of gold. The Jewish people like that boulder. throughout history, these people, these civil tried to destroy us and to get that purse of gold. But rather than destroying us, they would destroy through us. That's what happened. Therefore, the Jewish people, like the boulder, say, you know what? The world sees the Jews. We have the ultimate level of arrogance. All these civilizations try to stamp you out of existence. You have the audacity to still be here. You people are brazen people. Don't you think we have a right to exist like everybody has the right to exist? But because those who tried to destroy us, the greatest civilizations, because they were destroyed to us, through us, everyone says they couldn't do it, we're going to do it. Because the Jew has that streak of arrogance. You stand up against the world, and seemingly you should lose, and you don't lose, but rather they lose as a result of engaging with you. I said, that's the basis for anti-Semitism. You Jews can't get rid of you. We can't compete with you. As much as we try, you always have an ace up your sleeve. Always. But the question, is it honest or dishonest? It must be dishonest because you always beat us. There must be something dishonest about you people. Has nothing to do with dishonesty. It has to do because of who we are. And we have a right to exist. We're not asking you for anything. That conversation, I'm not sure, what he did with the conversation. Was once riding on the train, and I'm sitting next to somebody, and this person's getting off in Philadelphia. And he's a Jew. And when I speak, I say certain things which almost just naturally. I speak about God. I see God, the merciful one. So I say, that's the way I express it. God, the merciful one. So this person sitting next to me must be about my age. And he says to me, he says, how could you call God the merciful one? He says, do you realize my parents' family, most of them were killed during the Holocaust? And we observe nothing. We don't observe Rosh Hashanah. We don't observe Yom Kippur. We get together once a year at the Seder. It's just a family gathering. So how could you refer to God as the merciful one if he allowed the Holocaust? So I said, I want to ask you a question. I said, do you believe in God? He says, yes. The story goes back close to 40 years ago. I said, you believe in God? Yes. I said, do you believe the American people are good people? The average American is a good person. He says, yes. Do you believe the average American is ethical and moral? He says, yes. Do you believe that the average American, if he could help another person, he would help the other person? Yes. I said, doesn't it seem to be a little bit incongruous? God, who's the creator, created all these nice, ethical, moral, giving people. They'll give you a shirt off their back. And he himself is cruel beyond your imagination. Does that make sense? Millions of people he creates, they're all nice people, special people. But he himself is a monster. Does that seem to be a little contradictory? He says, you got a good point. I said, why don't you think about it? That's the point they made. If you think about it, you realize that maybe you have to do a little more research to understand why things happen and why things don't happen. So just because you have a question, the question is not the answer. Because you see, it's contradictory to what you think. That was the question. I said, put in your pipe and smoke it. And we left. He got off in Philadelphia, he went his way. Whether he shared it or whether he didn't share it, I don't know. Just one last story. Many years ago, there was a person by the name of Jeffrey Glick, Allah Shalom, passed away about a year ago. And he was a developer. One time he was one of the top developers in New York City. And whatever, and he had some reversals. and he had tremendous capability. And he comes and tells me that he met the son of, I once told the story, of the richest man in Istanbul, Turkey, Sephardic Jew. And he puts up these luxury high-rise buildings in Istanbul. And his son is here in New York looking to do business. People investing in Istanbul or contributing to Istanbul. And we met, and he's considering maybe giving me the project, to put up this project. The man must have been about up at 30s, married man. He was in New York with his small children. And he says to me, Jeffrey Glick, he says, I want to tell you, he told me a phenomenal story, 2 stories. Being such a wealthy person, he was in Italy, and he was riding in a limousine, and they tried to kidnap him. And as he's in this limousine, chauffeured limousine, motorcycles pull up, ride alongside the limousine, try to stop the limousine driver keeps driving, and they open with automatic weapons, and they shoot through both sides of the limousine. Not one bullet touched him. Miraculously, he was spared. Miracle. He's telling the story to this Jeffrey Glick. Another story, he was skiing in Turkey. There's a ski area where you have snow and mountains. He skied off a mountain, and he skied off 1,000 feet from the mountain. He fell, he landed, he was barely scratched. He wasn't killed. Miracle. These are the 2 stories he shares with this Jeffrey Glick. And Jeffrey Glick says to me, did you ever hear of such a thing? I said, Jeffrey, when you meet him next time, tell him I want to see him. I'd like to see him. I'd like he should share the stories. I want to hear it directly from him. He said, sure, I'm going to see him this afternoon. He'll come tomorrow. He'll tell you the stories. Next day, he comes, this person, and he says to me, tells me the stories. He's a secular Jew, Sephardic Jew, secular. And I said to him, and he tells me the stories, he's all excited. I said, let me ask you a question. Do you believe in God? He says, yes. I said, let me ask you a question. If most people don't survive what you survived, what do you think God wants you to survive? Why? I said, do you ever think about that? He said, no. He said, evidently, God wants you to survive because you have some purpose and value in this existence. What do you think your value is? To make more money? Your father's the richest Jew in Istanbul. You don't have to make any more money. You have enough money that you can support the next 10 generations. So why does God want you to be alive? Evidently, because God wants you to do something for the Jewish people. I said, what would God want you to do for the Jewish people? I said, for a fact, the assimilation rate in Istanbul is 80%. Jews and non-Jews intermarrying. That's the assimilation rate. If you would establish a kollel, young men studying, learning, and that should be a core of influence of Judaism, and to expose, and Istanbul being what it is, and that becomes a center of Judaism, you could stem that tide of assimilation. And I said, from Tel Aviv to Istanbul, it's a 47-minute flight. I said, you could fly the people in for the week, and they fly home for the Shabbat. We're talking about pennies. I said, maybe that's your purpose. The reason why you are meant to live is to do this, and that's your contribution to the Jewish people and to God. He heard it. What happened? But certain things are not meant to be. His father ultimately was murdered. A few months later, I'm not sure what happened after that, but that's the incident. You understand? You hear stories. So what's the value of the story? It's exciting, but maybe there's a message. Maybe there's a silver lining in that cloud. And the silver lining is there's a treasure there, but you have to appreciate the treasure. See the opportunity. But only a person who has a certain type of background, he sees it a certain way, and he could communicate that value. Somebody else sees it, he gets all excited. What are you getting excited about? Did you hear what happened? It's like you get excited. Somebody else won the $1 billion lottery. What does it do for you? What are you getting all excited about? Didn't see. I saw him. I saw the person. And what does it do for you? Do you think that's going to allow you to win the lottery? It has nothing to do with you. What are you wasting your time? Okay, we're going to stop here. Any comments?